Once upon a time, toys didn't just sit on the shelf. They built entire universes, epic battles, rich storylines, and characters we'll never forget. All born from plastic action figures. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, toys companies didn't just sell you figures. They sold you a world to imagine in. The toys came first, and the cartoons, comics, and movies followed. These weren't just products, they were passport to entire universes. Take Masters of the Universe. Mattel launched He-Man figures in 1982, complete with mini comics that sold the story of Eternia, Castle Grayskull, and the battle between He-Man and Skeletor. The cartoon, that came later, designed to sell even more toys. Watching He-Man growing up, I didn't even realize it was a comic book or none of that. I remember the toys, but I know it was a comic book before the cartoon came out. The cartoon was awesome. I don't know much today because I watched it, like the old episodes, as an adult, and they don't stand up that good. But for a kid watching a regular man turn into a super, like a wrestler type dude or whatever, I thought that was pretty cool. G.I. Joe wasn't just a toy. It was a serialized military soap opera for kids. Hasbro worked with Marvel Comics to create backstories for every figure. The cartoon gave us characters like Snake Eyes, Cobra Commander, and Destro, each with their own lore. I absolutely loved G.I. Joe growing up. I used to watch that shit every morning and whenever it was on. The G.I. Joe movie was awesome. The toys were inexpensive because usually the figures were super small. So parents that didn't have a lot of money could afford the toys. But they also had like a lot of vehicles. I remember all of those G.I. Joe commercials. They were always on TV. And like I said, they had a backstory to every character, which makes you grow with the character as the series went on. That show was pretty awesome, and it was way ahead of its time. They had not all the episodes connected, but they had quite a few episodes that connected, like the whole Serpentor story, how they made Serpentor. That was pretty awesome. Like I said, I did a video on Cobra Commander. He's one of my top 5 villains of all time. I loved his whole story. I love his voice. I love everything about Cobra Commander. He was one of my favorite villains growing up. And a villain makes a cartoon better. If you have a great villain that the heroes can fight, it definitely makes the cartoon a lot better. The movie sucked, especially the second movie. That movie was so bad. The first movie was all right. I'm a big fan of Channing Tatum, so I give him a pass. But I think they're gonna redo the movies. But definitely, and Snake Eyes sucked. The movie Snake Eyes was terrible. So hopefully they redo it and do it in more of a theme of the G.I. Joe cartoon. But definitely G.I. Joe, one of the best storytelling cartoons in the 80s that came out. Transformers took the concept even further. Imported from Japan as Diaclone and Microman toys, these were rebranded for the US with an epic backstory for Autobots versus Decepticons. Kids just didn't buy Optimus Prime. They bought into an entire war for Cybertron. That's what sold this cartoon the most back in the 80s. I remember growing up, you knew the story of the Decepticons, you knew the story of Autobots, and you wanted all the characters. And I also did a video on this. One of my favorite villains, top 5 villains, of course, was Starscream. He was amazing because he was a conniving bad guy that wanted to be in charge, but he didn't have the backbone to really take over for Megatron. But he did everything he could to try to be the leader. I love that whole backstory between him and Megatron. I wasn't a big fan of Optimus Prime for some reason, but I was drawn more to the villains because their stories was a lot better in my opinion. But overall, I loved the Transformers because the story and the toys. The toys were super expensive. I remember having a Bumblebee. I think I had. I didn't really have a lot of those toys because they were super expensive, and the commercials were always on trying to sell those Transformers toys.
Ultra Magnus, as car carrier, he can transport 4 Autobots into battle, but once there, he transforms into my powerful Autobot commander. Transformers!
Along with the G.I. Joe toys, but there was a lot of Transformers toys, and then you have the movie that came out like 30 years later, which brought back all the feelings. I mean, I'm still a big fan of the Transformers. I try to watch some of the cartoons that's on Netflix. I thoroughly enjoy it. I love the movie that came out last year. I don't know if they're going to make a part 2, but
Hi there, I'm B127. I'm actually working on some nicknames. The one I'm floating right now is Badassatron, which is actually pronounced Badassatron.
We're gonna call you B.
The movie was fantastic. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch that. The cartoon movie that is Transformers 1. But Transformers was just like my whole childhood. And I remember watching the Transformers movie where Optimus Prime died. It was crazy. I didn't go to the theaters or nothing. I remember watching it on tape or whatever, but it was crazy. It destroyed a lot of kids' life. And they had to bring him back because kids love Optimus Prime. But Transformers definitely sold to the kids, and it was one of those shows that had an ongoing story, and most of the episodes connected, which of course everybody loves. It was way ahead of its time in that sense also. While Ninja Turtles started as a gritty indie comic, Playmates saw toy potential and built an entire animated universe around it. Every mutant vehicle and wacky pizza launcher existed to keep kids coming back for the next figure. I thoroughly love the Ninja Turtles. Probably my favorite cartoon when it came out in the late 80s, early 90s. I had every Ninja Turtle, all four of them. And those were actually cheap too. Those Ninja Turtles were cheap. Because I remember my mom, we grew up poor, but I had all four Ninja Turtles. And I had Bebop and Rocksteady. So I think they went for like $6.99 at the time or whatever, which was cheap for action figure. So I had all of those Ninja Turtles. I remember bringing the Ninja Turtles to school too. I don't know why I put it in my book bag to bring this because I was so stupid. But I remember the Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles was huge. If you weren't born in the 90s, early 90s, Ninja Turtles were fucking huge. The biggest thing on TV. They had the movies, they had the live shows, they had the cartoon, they had the toys, they had the videos, they had Ninja Turtle pies, they had the cereal, like anything you could think of. I had the Ninja Turtle sleeping bag too. I got it for Christmas one year. I had that shit for years too afterwards. But there was so much product. They sold the shit out of the fucking Ninja Turtles. It was a funny cartoon. Doesn't really stand up today. I like the newer iterations of the Ninja Turtle, but the older cartoon was okay. But like I said, it doesn't stand up really today. I like the movies. They weren't the newer movies weren't that good, but they were okay. The comedy was real good though. Most of the Ninja Turtle shows, the newer ones were pretty good too. The ones that came on Nicktoons or whatever, or no, Cartoon Network. I used to watch them with my son all the time. I bought some Ninja Turtle games for Xbox too, so I'm still into the Ninja Turtles even as an adult. Definitely one of my favorite cartoons. Definitely some of the best toys I ever had growing up, and I love the Ninja Turtle video games. So they knew what they were doing back in the day when they sold Ninja Turtles. That was a huge hit. Star Wars flipped the formula. Movie first, toys after. But by the 1980s, the toys were creating their own lore. Kenner figures and playsets expanded the galaxy far beyond what we saw on the screen. Star Wars was huge back in the day. I wasn't a big Star Wars fan growing up, to tell you the truth, but it was around. I think it got more popular in the 2000s when episode 4, 5, and 1, 2, and 3 came out. Because I don't really remember a lot of Star Wars toys growing up. But like I said, I wasn't really into it. But they had, in the early 2000s, when the newer Star Wars came out, they had all the lightsabers, all the toys, like anything you could think of starring Star Wars was out. And then they continued with the movies. Disney got all the fucking shows on Disney Plus or whatever that I don't watch. I haven't seen Andor. I saw some of Solo, I saw some Solo. I haven't watched a lot of the Star Wars shit, but I'm not really into it. I've seen all the movies, but Star Wars was huge, and like I said, they really did things different than what was previous done. Like I said, they started with the movies first, then the toys, and it just grew from there. It's still growing. They still talking about making more movies and more TV shows and more cartoons or whatever. So it's still huge 40 years later. What made these universes special was that the kids built the story. Sure, the cartoons told you who the good guys and the bad guys were, but your battles, your adventures were unique. Today we have more media than ever, but fewer toy-driven worlds that capture the imagination the same way. This is true. There's not many brands out there that expand in a way those toys did in the 80s and early 90s. There's maybe fucking what's that shit called? Minecraft with the movie and the game, and they have all the toys out or whatever now. But there's not really that kind of shit. That's why they keep trying to bring back old shit to try to bring back the past to make that shit pop again. Like they bring back the Smurfs again. They bring back old IP, like the Transformers are still around, Ninja Turtles are still around. So they just trying to get that magic again. There's not one property out there right now that sells like the shit did in the 80s and 90s. These toy-driven universes shaped a generation. They taught creativity, storytelling, and maybe just a little brand loyalty. And while the golden age may be behind us, the worlds they created still live on. In reboots, nostalgia, collections, and in the imaginations of the kids who grew up with them. That's true. I still remember all of that stuff. He-Man, Transformers, Ninja Turtles. And in some way, they're still coming back. You still see it around. I go to the Walmart or whatever, you see the Ninja Turtle toys, G.I. Joe toys. All that stuff is still around. Not as big as it used to be, but it's still around and brings back great memories. What toy universe ruled your childhood? Was it the Autobots, He-Man, Cobra? Let's talk about it in the comments. If you love this trip down memory lane, like, subscribe, comment, and keep the nostalgia alive. That's going to do it for the video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I just got over 1,000 subscribers. I truly appreciate you guys for helping me get there. 1,001 to be exact, up to this video. Thank you guys, I truly appreciate it. Hopefully you get another 1,000 and then another 1,000 after that. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Keep it on anybody else's channel and you decided to watch mine, so I appreciate that. It's only 24 hours in a day and you gave me a couple of yours, so thank you, I truly appreciate it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Some of my favorite cartoons, like I said, Transformers, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles. Let me know what you think. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll get it to y'all on the next one. Have a good one. Later.